After encountering a dangerous enemy with powers unlike anything they've ever faced before, Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails seek out an unlikely alliance with Dr. Robotnik to stop the mysterious Shadow. Now, despite the fact that these Sonic movies are clearly aimed at children, I can't deny that I actually do enjoy watching them. I grew up watching Saturday morning cartoons like Sonic X, after all, and Sonic Heroes was the first video game that I ever owned, so I definitely have a soft spot in my heart for the Sonic franchise. So I like seeing how these characters have come to life so faithfully on the big screen, and since this movie acts as the introduction to Shadow the Hedgehog, I was definitely looking forward to seeing how he would be depicted, and I thought he was great. Keanu Reeves does an excellent job of portraying the quiet anger and rage that exists within this character. Because Shadow may appear to be simply stoic and brooding, but there's clearly so much more going on beneath the surface, which means Keanu Reeves was the perfect choice to play a character like Shadow. And I'm a fan of Ben Schwartz as Sonic, Idris Elba as Knuckles, and even Colleen O'Shaughnessy as Tails, but having Neo/John Wick in this voice cast really felt like something special, especially considering that Shadow is a character with a tragic backstory. And I mean, his history isn't as dark as the characters from Creature Commandos or anything, but it is a more mature story compared to any of the other characters in the franchise. And that story does allow the film to explore themes involving death and grief and how vengeance can be all-consuming, but in a way that can be easily digestible for children. So Sonic 3 is allowed to be a more mature and complex feature compared to its predecessors, while still maintaining the fun and lighthearted spirit of the franchise overall. I mean, it's not like the movie is suddenly dark and overly serious. After all, this is the same film that features dual performances by Jim Carrey, one where he's playing his character's own grandfather. And I don't think the film really needed to include Dr. Robotnik's grandfather, but at least we got this iconic and meme-worthy dance sequence as a result, especially since Galvanize is an absolutely fantastic song. But the fact that the song is officially 20 years old now does make me feel really fucking old, but not old enough to not enjoy this movie. I mean, I think Sonic 2 is still my personal favorite in the film trilogy, but I think this movie is good enough to satisfy any fan of the Sonic franchise overall. But if you thought Sonic 2's runtime was way too long, or that the plot focused on the human characters for far too long, then I can see how you could find Sonic 3 to be the better film. Because James Marsden and Taika Sumter are still in this movie, and they do have important roles to play here, but their presence in the film doesn't detract from the story being told, which it kind of was doing in Sonic the Hedgehog 2. But their roles in this film only help reinforce the more mature themes that I was talking about earlier. Hell, even the fact that there is twice as much Jim Carrey in this film doesn't feel distracting at all, since Grandpa Robotnik's story does tie in with Shadow's backstory. So I have to admit that Sonic 3 did a much better job of integrating the human characters into the actual plot. I just personally preferred the fun and epic story that was being told in Sonic 2. But Sonic 3 does feature some fun and epic moments too. Hell, the entire finale feels like a huge Dragon Ball Z-esque action sequence, so I obviously enjoyed that aspect of the film, which means that director Jeff Fowler has continued to impress me with his work on this series, because this is a goofy little children's franchise that I should admittedly find way too silly or childish. but I actually can't help but to enjoy it. I'm even looking forward to seeing how this series will continue, especially if it's going to include more characters from the Sonic franchise. And as the cast of characters continue to grow, those characters can even star in spin-off shows like Knuckles did. That way, we can continue to see their development, even though they might not get a lot of time to shine in the full-length feature films. And I admit that I actually haven't watched all of Knuckles yet, but I enjoyed watching the first episode on YouTube, especially since I was able to catch one connection between the series and the film, but you clearly don't need to have watched the series in order to enjoy the movie, which is another element that I definitely liked. Still, I don't think the movie is going to work for absolutely everyone, but it should speak to anyone who is already a fan of the Hedgehog, because it certainly managed to appeal to my own inner child. So Sonic 3 is a fun and family-friendly film, and it would definitely get a recommendation from me. And I appreciate anyone who took the time to hear my full thoughts on this movie, so as always, thanks for watching.